and hopefully we do serve. We'd like to foster and build up the relationships. So I'm going to, in addition, read our mission statement. Precinct level advisory board of the 7th Precinct is committed to fostering strong connections between law enforcement and our diverse community, with each member representing various societal groups, inclusivity, and understanding. Through our open communication and collaboration, we strive to address concerns and promote safety effectively. Our mission emphasizes accountability and partnership, ensuring a safer and more supportive environment for all residents. And at this point, I'm going to.
I'm just going to introduce myself. I haven't met a lot of folks. I just want to introduce myself because I recently the 7th Precinct. So I'm an inspector. My name's Don Raber. I have over 30 years of police experience. I've worked in various community policing jobs throughout my career, and I realized that to have success in any job within the police department, you have to have back and forth between the community. We have to get along. There has to be transparency from the police department, especially more now than ever, with us and the community. So, I mean, you guys pay our salary. I have no problem saying it. It's true, right? And we're here to make the community better, and so everybody can prosper and have a good quality of life, and they deserve that good quality of life. And there's ways to accomplish this, and the best way to do it is having a good relationship with everyone in the community. And this advisory board is one way to do it. It's instituted after the reform, the police reform, which is an example of the behavioral health section, which was also instituted from the police reform. I'm very familiar with the behavioral health section, worked with them personally, and it's an effective unit, and it has a great, has an ability to grow and become more effective to help everybody, especially the mentally ill and the mentally deficient. That's who they deal with mostly, which we have in New York. I know for sure we definitely have a problem with mental health and how we take care of these people and how we deal with them, and how we can get them help and get them back to upstanding and involved members of the community. These guys are the pros at it. They've gone to special schools for it. And I'm telling you, Bridget is and her crew and Sergeant Mongolia, they're the best out there. Other departments throughout the nation are actually going off what we're doing right now. Now there's other departments that have it already and have grown to such a large amount in their section that they couldn't do without it. And other departments are actually feeding off what we're doing here. So I'm just going to break off here. I'm going to introduce you to be the Richard Sergeant Golia. I'm just going to start.
Well, my name is Chris Golia. I'm Sergeant, the advisor of the behavioral health section. I have 29 years experience as a police officer. My first 7 were in New York City before I came out to Suffolk County. I spent most of my tenure as a police officer in the 3rd Precinct. Very diverse. If you're not there, and the other nice stuff as well. I've been went into the behavioral health section about almost 2 years ago. Most of my experience before this was just coming up through the police officer dealing with people with mental health problems and deficiencies, and just not knowing, or at the time throughout the years not having the resources to help these people. You know, if somebody commits a crime, it's cut and dry, we arrest them and we go through the judicial system. But with the mental health, it's tricky for a lot of police officers because there weren't a lot of resources out there, not like there are today. Even that being said, we need more resources. And so when the department formed this unit, you know, I was eager to be a part of it just because I wanted to be a part of, you know, finding new resources, resolutions for people to get help once we take them into some sort of custody, whether it be to the state hospital or just even maybe not to that extent, but their daily issues and troubles that they might be going through themselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to one of the officers who kind of found this, Officer Bridget Topping, and she's going to give you a little more of a summary of what we do.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for having us here tonight. I understand that you wanted to hear what we have to say. I appreciate the invite. Thank you very much. Thank you, boss. And over there. Who's excited to hear about mental health? We had some sunny days finally. So thank you. I just want to thank my team. They always stand by here and they will jump in at certain times. We do these presentations quite a bit, but I do tend to take the role of speaker. I'm okay with that. Like my boss said, I am the co-creator of this unit, which did stem from police reform. So coming up on 3 years ago now, we were tasked, the Suffolk County Police Department was tasked through the police reform, through the People's Plan. How are we going to look at and reimagine the way the Suffolk County Police Department handles the mental health crisis? Is everybody in here familiar with the facts, like we read the news and we're just aware that there's a mental health and substance use crisis in the country, right? Yes. Is that news to anybody? No. Thank you. Okay, good night. So in looking at this, we wanted to see what was the police department doing, who do they partner with, and how can we make that partnership grow stronger? How can we make this an effective collaboration to get persons in crisis that are calling 911 accessibly, connected to the appropriate behavioral health services, as opposed to calling the police department? We hear quite often that that people that are using 911 and having the police respond to them over and over again due to a mental health crisis, maybe it's not the police that should be responding to them. It would be better suited if they had a mental health expert engage that individual and looked to connect them to services. And if they're already connected to services, let's open a conversation so the police department can communicate with their treatment providers to discuss what is going on with that individual. Why are they calling 911 this way? Well, let's get them, using their treatment provider as opposed to calling 911. So it was the initial hypothesis of this was, and mirroring from what is done all around the United States, when you connect a person in crisis with a mental health expert, you're going to diminish police response. That was how this kind of started and stemmed. So we're gonna look at that. A lot of our research was done from units that have existed for more than a decade. The Southwest kind of started doing this. So we looked at San Antonio Police Department and Harris County Sheriffs, which is in Texas. They both have well-established behavioral health sections, mental health sections of varying sizes, degrees. But we wanted to look at that and make it specific to the Suffolk County Police Department, which is the 12th largest police department in the United States, and look at make sure that we have a good mental health partner to work with. We work with Family Service League. Is anybody familiar with Family Service League? Yeah, it's all around. They have centers all across the United States. All across Suffolk County. We work daily, hourly with DASH, which is the Diagnostic Assessment Stabilization Hub for Family Service League. That is located in Hong. It is a 24-hour, we call it like a mental health, quick, fast, check-in, doc in the box type of urgent care for a mental health crisis. It is a place, like a respite, that an officer can take somebody who voluntarily wants to go, needs the assistance. They can be brought there or go is the psych unit in Stony Brook Hospital or another mental health hospital. And I'm gonna explain why that's important. Prior to Dash existing, which they only opened in 2019, and then there was some crazy stuff that happened in the United States for a couple years. And then they really started getting going about a year and a half ago. So within the last year and a half, they really upped their game. They are working on becoming full staff. And it's an excellent place to bring a person in access. Like I said, they have to volunteer and there's a certain standard and requirement, so they can't be a threat to themselves or others. And they have to volunteer to go. And there's staffed fully with social workers. There's social worker, nurse practitioner, they can be seen and they can be connected to services if they aren't already. There's flyers over here in both English and Spanish. You can help yourself, you can pick them up if you know of somebody in crisis. There's a phone number on there for you to call. Important to note that anybody can go there at any time. They are open 24 hours a day. Person cannot stay there for more than 24 hours a day. So within that time period, that person is going to be assessed, evaluated, and look to be connected and move on from there. They can keep going back over and over again, but within that first initial evaluation, anybody's stay there. This is important. Like I said, prior to that, police officers only had the option of taking to somebody to CPAP or another mental health hospital. So that person who has been deemed a threat to themselves or others, our policy and procedure for the safety of the individual and the safety of the officer is handcuffed and put in the back of the police car and transported to one of these facilities. Now, why do we like Dash? Why do we like taking somebody to Dash that doesn't fit that criteria? So somebody that has to be handcuffed and put in the back of the police car and taken to a psych hospital, quite often, and what we're seeing a lot more of these days is children. And it's really, really hard to take a 7-year-old in handcuffs to a psych hospital. Now, if they need it, they need it, and we're gonna do it because it's our job and we have to get them there safely. But we like the option that we have now given to us by Suffolk County that if they're not violent and they're not really a threat to themselves or others in a way, we can take that child 5 and above to Dash. So we are seeing a significant increase in the mental health crisis in juveniles. And it's nice to have this place available as opposed to prior to that, just hospitalizations. Dash can assess anybody that's brought there and make a determination if that person does have to go to a hospital. If they do, then the police officers are going and they are then transporting that person from Dash to a mental health hospital. So the existence of Dash has been wonderful for many reasons. Officers on patrol can call Dash and ask for assistance. One of our programs that has been wildly successful that created by the behavioral health section, which stems from Harris County Sheriff's, is a telehealth program. So officers can call a social worker at Dash. They can connect via, it's like a Zoom type app. It's not actually Zoom. And they can FaceTime Zoom with the person in crisis. And the social worker can make the determination with the officer if that person needs to be transported or not. Since we started this telehealth program back in December of 2021, it has been used 824 times. Of that, 75% of those calls have had a no transport rate. So that's very successful. We are very happy with those numbers. What that means is that that person was not, prior to telehealth existing, prior to Dash existing, that 75% of those people would have been transported to a hospital because an officer had no other option of what to do with them. Now they can check in with a social worker who can make that determination And there's 9 different outcomes that are possible. There's like a living, breathing program as we were going through and things that we just, if we had to be in it as we were going through with it. So it can be determined that mobile crisis, which also falls under family service leave, is going to go out and assess that person later on in the day. They're okay to stay there. It's okay that that person can be left alone. That person may have to be transported to a hospital for a medical condition. Or it can be also that, the officer, in hearing the communication that's going on, has determined that they now have enough information that they can transport this person to the hospital. They don't need the disposition from the social worker. It's just giving an officer another tool in their tool belt to better help and assist a person in crisis. So that is one of our major, wildly successful programs that we are very happy with. Out of this, do you guys have any questions? Oh, okay. You want to wait or?
I don't know. I just based on what I just had a question as I'm listening to you. A patient in crisis. What's the definition of the crisis? Right, like so. Well, a person in crisis. Like, what's the definition of a person in crisis that initiates this process?
Crisis varies. It could be anything. My crisis is very different than your crisis. It's all how we respond to it. When my Roomba breaks, I'm in crisis. Okay, and the way I react to that is not going to be the way that you react to it. So that could just be something that for me, I'm unable to control my emotions. And I want to take that Roomba and smash my husband over the head with it because he didn't charge it and make sure it went back to his home. Or maybe it's no big deal.
So at that point, is it
my husband calling?
That's what I was just gonna say. It's your husband calling 911 at this point and saying, "My wife is in crisis. She's threatening to hit me over the head with."
Seen her like this. You see. Bye.
Gotcha.
And like I have something has to happen. I need help with her. Officer is going to respond, and they're going to assess, and I'm going to be like, whatever it may be. So crisis varies. It all depends on a level and how you're handling it, and how the people around you see you, and are they noticing a change? There's no real definition because anybody can be. And that's one of the wonderful things about the telehealth program is that we don't limit it to how calls are dispatched. So quite often calls may be dispatched to a police officer that this person it's a mental health call. Okay, telehealth can be used on a domestic. You don't know what's really going on until we get there, right? So I've been a police officer. I'm coming up on my 20th year. You get all sorts of calls. You don't know what that call is really going to look like until you get there. So it's not like an officer is only using that phone. Let me just go back. As of right now, we have 20 special CIT trained officers in the county that have been issued work phones. But any patrol officer is able to the telehealth program.
So what's the criteria? What's the checklist for the responding patrol officer to decide that, okay, now I need to make this call?
There isn't one. There doesn't need to be one. It's however the officer, if that person is in crisis and something is going on with that, and they want to, and they know that that person needs help. They're not a threat to themselves or other. They're not somebody that has to be brought to the hospital, but there's something behaviorally off with this individual because mom is telling me this. Dad is telling whoever it may be.
So like
that this is not a normal response to what this is.
So it's officer discretion to decide whether it's required to escalate it to the next level or just.
If there's somebody that is like a violent threat to themselves with a knife running around obviously we're not taking out a phone and using it in that instance. That is a person that is going to be transported to the hospital based on the officer's assessment of what's going on with that call. But are we gonna yell at, or is an officer going to be reprimanded for using the phone on like a disturbance call? No, they're not. It's a good tool. So an officer can use that phone or make that phone call to have a social worker assess this individual for anything. It's a beautiful program.
So it's more than discretion. It's his training.
That was gonna be my next question.
It's his training and it's the tools that she mentioned that they have available to them. Make an educated decision about the moment. So it's the dash and the family health and the behavioral health and the telehealth. It's the wide variety of information they have at the scene to deal with this individual. It's more than just.
Is it taught at the, is this covered at the academy?
It's covered in the academy and it's covered ongoing through.
And also, we have 20% of patrol that is trained in crisis intervention team training. So that is once an officer is on patrol, they can volunteer to go through this training, which is a week-long training that extrapolates upon the original, the mental health training that they get in the academy. And it teaches de-escalation techniques, verbal de-escalation techniques. It teaches, it's like an up-to-date, it brings everybody up to date on what's going on in the community, that the behavioral health section exists. Call us, we can help you. A dash comes in, it's a collaborative training where we get the police department, and then people from the Office of Mental Health and Hygiene come in, and like group home staff workers will come in, people with mental health issues will come in. They talk about their interactions that they've had with police officers, how they think it could have gone better, what they want the police officers to understand about their mental illness. There's a lot of different trainings that go on for this crisis intervention team officer trainings. And then when they graduate after that, we have been given 20 phones. Like I said, they then have the opportunity to have one of these phones. We switch the phones around, like to every precinct, we change them up. And it's like another tool, and we're using that data from this program to hopefully be able to present someday how successful this is, that all patrol officers need cell phones to be able to like make these phone calls. So it's a good data foundation as well. Research.
I got a follow-up question on, you mentioned a couple of times that the person who's called has to go voluntarily. A number of times.
To dash.
Okay.
Specific.
Oh.
They are.
But so in this other scenario where the officer in cooperation with the social worker or the psychologist, whoever's on the other line of the social worker can then make an assessment that, okay, now this person, is a problem and he has to be taken in whether he or she wants to go or not.
If that's the case, then they will be CPAP or one of the other mental health hospitals that has mental health facility capabilities.
Gotcha.
So.
But the officer can't make that call on his own. He needs.
The idea behind this is, as opposed to the knee-jerk reaction that I had for 20 years on patrol of just, person in crisis, bringing them, cup up, taking them to the hospital, I now have another option.
Got it.
Because DASH and this telehealth and working with social workers, stemming from the existence of us, didn't exist before. So that's what is beautiful about it.
Got it. Thank you.
Do you get it?
Yeah, starting to connect the dots a little bit.
Okay, all right. Yeah, well, my whole presentation, I'm gonna have to do that now. Okay.
So just really quick, like she said, when you ask a person to fight any type of emotional distress, so your emotional distress can be different from my emotional distress. And when the officer comes, there are scenarios that, again, like we spoke about earlier, it doesn't fit our places. Take that person off. So like I was saying in my introduction, these are other resources now available to us that weren't available before that we can offer to people rather than hospital costs. So that's basically in a nutshell.
Excuse me real quick. Could we request it? If
So,
the officer comes and they're like, well, I don't know, can we we turn around and say, we think?
100%.
So who's we? Are you a neighbor or a family member?
You know,
As a
a family member
family
that
member?
has called someone and
Yeah.
to the situation.
It's going to be something that I can't guarantee will happen. It might not. The officer may on their own make a determination based on what the individual has said, that they don't need, that the telehealth is over here. I know as what I'm doing is I'm taking this person. I don't need to hear from the social worker. It's just an added tool for the gray area calls that we call, where it's like, could go one way or the other. I don't really know. This is now, I'm going to speak with a mental health professional and let's see what they say. Doesn't mean the officer can still make the final call and take the person if they feel it's needed. It's just an added like backup. It's like having like another partner, like somebody else that's just there to help you, guide you along the way if you're unsure. Okay? What? A second opinion, yeah, thank you very much. Let me recoup here. So, telehealth, we talked about that. One of our other programs that had started that kind of comes even before telehealth, that works all around the United States, is something called call diversion. So call diversion is something that happens initially right up at communications in headquarters, where when you call 911, somebody's there answering the phone, asking you those questions. The call taker can, there's like a series of 4 questions that they can ask the person. They're going to know, like, okay, this does sound like it might not even need a police response. This person, and we use the example all the time, this is where the call takers do use it quite frequently. A lot of people call 911 in the morning because little Timmy doesn't want to go to school, refuses to get on the school bus. And they can transfer that call directly from the call center at 911 to a social worker at Dash that can then talk to that little Timmy and mom. Oh, I'm sorry if anybody has Timmy. I always go to Timmy. I don't know why. You're Timmy? All right. Did you go to school every day? I don't know. I'm not somebody's school. So they're gonna call 911. They're gonna transfer that call over to Dash. And Dash, a social worker, Dash is gonna walk mom and little Timmy through why you should be going to school, and hopefully get that to happen. If Timmy still refuses to go to school, then call can be transferred right back to communications, where then an officer can be dispatched. So it's a way of having a call, somebody that's in a crisis doesn't really need a police response in any way, and hopefully can be de-escalated. That person's getting that immediate assistance from the social worker on the phone, and then nobody, like a police officer, isn't responding at all. Does everybody understand how that works? And that all happens right at the level at 911, the call center communications. The dispatchers, the call takers are trained. Officer Gina over here goes up quite frequently with the clinical director of Dash and sits down and trains constantly the call takers regarding this program and how it should be utilized, how it can be utilized. We see this work across the United States. There is a plan to have a social worker implanted directly in the call center. And we're going to pilot that pretty soon and see how that works. So the social worker, like a call taker, like physically, I could be like, hey, social worker, get this call. So it's not one of the programs that we hear from the call takers is they're nervous that they're sending this person in crisis to a building that where it's like far away. We don't know what's happening, what's going on. And so what makes it successful in other parts of the United States is that social worker's right there. So I'm taking this call and I'm saying to you, what's your name? Josh, help Timmy go to school. Get Timmy on the bus. You know, so go for it.
So I'm the principal of mobile.
Okay.
Is that service available to students, or is it
It is, no, it is available to anybody and everybody, and we have SROs that do have the phone that use it, for things like that. This, you can call, take a flyer, you can call Dash yourself, not you, I mean, the secretary. And have them, they can make that phone call, and all it is, whoever phone you want to use, if you live in Timmy's at school and he has a phone, it can go right through on that phone. All it is a text message that pops up. It's a link. It's a HIPAA med compliant link. That link will disappear after 10 minutes. And if you're just gonna FaceTime with a social worker. So anybody can do, call the number that's on there, say that this is what's going on, this is what you do. And it's, right there. Yeah, of course.
You may have just unlocked something there.
What?
You may have just unlocked something there.
I hope so. That is telehealth. We got a folder version. I talked a little bit about CIT. One of the other programs that we work on that is successful, we're pretty much really successful, is our overdose program. So we are looking at substance use, right? We look at and evaluate every person that overdoses with an opioid where Narcan is administered, and we like a little workup on that person, and we refer them to Family Service League. Family Service League will then outreach that individual for a collateral and look to get them connected to services. If the person refuses and they still don't want to be connected to services, which if you know anything about substance use, can't force somebody into that. They have to do it when they're ready. But Family Service League will go out. They have a peer that goes out with a social worker, and they can offer the individual Narcan and Narcan training. So, since our inception, we have referred well over 1,500 individuals for people for overdoses where Narcan was administered and it was an opioid. 22% of those people, we've had a positive outcome. Now that may sound like on the the other side of not good outcome nationally, it's phenomenal. So that is one of the programs that Inspector Raver was referring to, where we are sharing what it is, the harm reduction model of Family Service League, giving people the Narcan, the training, and fentanyl test strips as well.
Sorry, I'm an engineer. What's a positive outcome?
Positive outcome is they actually were able to find Josh, have a conversation with Josh, tell him about the program, what it is that we're doing, and whether or not Josh says yes or no, but we're giving him the Narcan, that's positive. Okay?
Yep, thank
We
you.
also then follow up on Josh anytime he has another overdose. So we're seeing the police department, we're seeing that, we're alerted to that, and then we can then let Family Service League know, Josh overdose again. And they will look to then outreach Josh again. And each time try to see if he wants to get help so he can his drug use. Okay?
Thank you.
So that is, when I first got the numbers back on that, I was like not happy about that because we do a lot of work to try to find a phone number and address. It's a difficult population. They're your average person with substance use disorder that is overdosing on fentanyl. There's no heroin anymore. Everybody doesn't need to know that. There's no heroin, it's just fentanyl. It's not happening at home. They're not sitting on their couch at home, So when patrol responds and they have to Narcan this individual back to life, first of all, are they going to cooperate with the police? We don't know. Are they giving an accurate phone number? Are they at home? Does somebody around them have a name, phone number? It's a lot of work to try to get accurate pedigree information for the individual. So there's a lot at play there as far as getting that positive outcome number. So when we boil it down and we look at it, it actually is a very good number for this population. So have that. There is and then the biggest part of the program, obviously, we're here to talk about mental health. We look at how utilizing the police services. So this is evolving as we go along, due to some just changes in computer systems and some technical difficulties. But we had been looking at individuals that were transported to a mental health hospital 3 times within 6 months. We're looking at them to see what is going on with this person, and would they be better suited being connected to behavioral health services as opposed to the police coming over and over again? Why is this happening? Something that we realized as we were going along with this was that population of people, that number specifically, a lot of them were part of the OPWDD population, so Office of Persons with Developmental Disabilities, people that live in group homes. That's more than a mental illness. That is something that person has for life. They are already connected to services. What this opens us to be able to look at as a department with our mental health partners and with the hospitals that we work with is what's going on in these group homes that this person who resides there is constantly making these suicidal threats, and the staff in the group home is unable to help this individual. Like, this is not something that should be happening this frequently, this much. Like, what's really going on? So we will case conference about that individual with our mental health partners. Something that was very interesting, and one of the amazing reasons that we're happy that we exist now is the group homes or certain institutions, facilities, wherever it may have been, the people in charge had no idea how often 911 was being called for a person. So we are bringing to light just how much interaction certain individuals and certain homes are having. And when people hear that, you don't want to hear that. You want to know what's going on. Let's look at this. Let's get this individual help. Maybe they need a higher level of care. Maybe the group home staff needs more help. Maybe they need more training. Maybe the policies aren't working here. Let's look at this. So that is a can of worms that we have begun to open. A lot of people love me for it. Okay. This isn't a single pronged approach to just helping a person in crisis. There's people helping the people in crisis that are now in crisis, and they need help as well, like worker wellness, right? So we're just beginning, we're just starting to look at and evaluate that and what could be done for that. While we're looking at that, something that's only since January has started is we're now reviewing juveniles that are in a mental health crisis, where somebody 17 and under that is being transported to a mental health facility is in OPWDD and hasn't been transported yet, or we don't believe is connected with services. We're referring that individual to family service lead to look to get that child connected to services. So whereas before, with everybody, we had that 3 and 6 month statistic that we were looking to keep for data purposes, now with the juvenile, we want it to be on that first call. The first time a child is transported to a mental health facility, we want to know what's going on with that child, and let's get them connected to services with the hopes that they can thrive and not reach a second and a third. And if they do, we're going to know about it ahead of time and really start to look at and discuss what is going on. So that, like I said, that only just started in January, and it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
So what's your goal there? So you have I'll use an example. I and some others here live in a condominium complex where we have a lot of repeat offenders.
Yes.
SCPD's in there all the time for the same guy, same the same woman, the same guy, whether it's domestic or it's mental health. Now, you know, through this system that you're developing, it's gonna flag, hey, we got this one guy, John Doe, who's, you know, been called in the last 2 months. We've had 10 calls to his unit. Right, so then, like, what happens at that point and when you guys get that red flag? And I mean, you've put this in place, and I'm trying to understand, like, what's the goal? What's the end game, other than just knowing that SCPDs has been in there 10 times in the last 2 months dealing with this individual, whether he's, you know, been reported walking around the complex in his underwear, passed out drunk in the courtyard, you know, creating a fire hazard in his unit.
Yeah.
What's the end goal there?
It's a great question, and I'm working on a solution. All are working on a solution for that, because right now, there isn't one.
So I think part of the goal, right, is that unit alleviates Frank and I on patrol, with having to continue to respond. So if behavioral health is helping, that means Frank and I are out there for emergencies like heart attacks, you know, 911 calls, burglaries, robberies, where the patrol guys are free because we have somebody that's in the system that Bridget's been monitoring. So we may not have to go. So let's say he's doing 10 calls a month and Bridget gets it down to 5. We're doing 50% better when we're now 50% more available for regular 911 calls in the general public. So I think that's a big component that we don't talk about. Because it's kind of internal within the department. But that's one of the big reasons that we have the behavioral health is it lightens the load of the patrol guy, right? He doesn't have to do, if we know we're helping somebody, even though it's a long road, like Bridget's explaining, it's not an easy fix. They're doing their thing in the back burner where nobody sees. And then you see the patrol car out helping everyone else with their regular 911. Just one component.
It's one of the major reasons why, if I go back to telehealth and we have that 75% no transport rate, that's a percentage of time that those 2 officers that would have had to transport that person and spend hours waiting, and their hours not in sector anymore. Those are 2 officers that are now staying in sector. This isn't a light switch solution, okay?
I get that.
Like, and it's systemically, like, just, like I said.
Overwhelming.
Looking into what we're looking in for, like, the OPWD population, we're opening cans of worms here to look at and shine a light on what doesn't work. And that's not working. The police department is doing exactly what we should be doing. We're taking a person in crisis and we're bringing them to someplace that should be helping. Now we're gonna look at what is the place that should be helping doing. And we are the liaison for that. We here in the behavioral health section is discussing with the Office of Mental Health and Hygiene, county level, what is going on and how, like, why is this continuing to happen? Why is that person that we've now brought how many times still doing this?
So it's accountability. I'm just trying
Yes.
to hold somebody accountable.
Yes. That's the, yeah. Wanna look at the individual that maybe that's having the 10 disturbance calls that is walking around, and it's like, we hear a lot from patrol. Chances are that person that they're talking about, Frank, Jimmy, or
Oh,
something.
they know exactly who I'm talking about.
Could be, yeah. You know.
Tell Frank, stop burning down this whole.
You know, so you want to look at them and see what is going on. So it's taking time. We're only been in existence for 3.5 years. It's just us here. We're working on a lot of things. And there's been some roadblocks along the way. You know, a lot of things work against this. While it sounds like it could be good, you have HIPAA, you have consent, you have correct pedigree information. There's a lot to it. It's a lot of levels.
So I totally get the it's gonna take a lot of time. But I think one of the reasons why this whole program was put together and the public is here is how do we help you by having a voice what's that? Get some approval. Yes, I can.
I appreciate, no, we do, we very much appreciate it, and I think the biggest way that you can help us is understand that
Yep,
our
that's a starting point.
department took this step and they created this, and they are working on it. They heard that this is a problem, they were not happy with the way that the mental health situation was working, and they're working on it. And in under 3 years, what we have accomplished and the numbers that we have, like Inspector Raver said, I got an email today from somebody in the FBI, literally looking to spotlight our program and what it is that we're doing to put in like a national FBI newsletter. So like, it's good, it's a good thing, it's taking time, and just bear with us while we work through this. It's a lot of growing pains, a lot of figuring things out. I'm not even done yet because I have some future things that we are working on. So, but
That's okay. I would like to commend you guys. The proof is in the pudding. I think John's point is we almost feel as if you have proven yourselves worthy of all the funds and all the support in order to ramp this up over the next 5 or 10 years. And are there any future plans? Do you have particular like benchmarks or goals that we're looking at?
yes.
No.
Yeah.
So that's 824 times that you were able to respond. Do you have an estimate on an annual amount of mental health calls that you're receiving? Not necessarily that you're thinking or above that.
Asking showers. So, I don't have monthly, but I can break down that for the 2023 year in total. The 7th precinct had 1,298 mental health support for service. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't more mental health reports that were filled out. So, and there could have been more individuals, but this is how many calls for service there were. Okay. Oh, you want to finish the good report? No, I'm not even close.
This is great.
You want me to finish this first and then we'll talk? I'll talk about the future. Not 2 weeks ago, future. So future, we have a co-response unit that we just started to delve into. Gina and Sergeant Angolia have been going out with a social worker and a peer from Family Service League to individuals that we have already referred to Family Service League when they go to do their check on them, their evaluation on them. So that's alleviating that person, the patrol officers, from having to come off the road and respond with the social worker. We are scheduling that and making sure that we go out and we have the information on the people, and we are going out in this uniform. So it's like a soft close approach as opposed to the uniform. That's something that's been studied all around the United States for these types of units. Officers go out not in uniform, still armed, we are protected. And because we are there to help and protect the social workers, the unarmed social workers that are going out to engage with these individuals. We're there with them because that individual has at some point in their history some level of violence or some cause for concern that the social worker would have originally called 911 to have patrol respond with them. Instead, we are going and hoping to de-escalate the situation and let the social worker do the evaluation while we are there, and we can engage as well. We're not just bodyguards. So that we have co-response, and then one of the other, just programs that we're constantly looking at, and we have been doing and we're doing in the future, is we were introduced 2 years ago to a wonderful woman named Carol Trotter, who lost her son Alex to an overdose. This woman is just wonderful. She's become a friend, and in her grief, she decides she wants to honor her son. And she started this event on her own, and she just came and got connected to me, and we now do once a year on Alex's birthday at a small, tiny little pizza place up in Stony Brook. We'll set up with our EMT section, and we'll hand out Narcan. People can come in and get Narcan for free, and train. And then that turns into anybody that has lost a loved one to an overdose. You will do what it is you choose to honor your loved one, however it may be, and give out the Narcan for free. Some kind of police department is always giving out Narcan for free. You will see us at farmers markets, fairs, festivals. What else have we done? Impound auction. All different places where the police department and the community are going to be there. We can do with our EMT section quick Narcan training, and Carol's program is the Purple Rock program, where not only can you get your Narcan, but she actually collects on her own rocks and paints them purple. And people that have lost somebody will write the individual's name, and we can do like montage a picture on, and then all those purple rocks have been brought to a park in Iceland. And on Fentanyl Awareness Day and different ledge days, she will transport them, will bring them to either the ledge, wherever it may be, so people can see just how significant the loss of life from fentanyl is, or opioid in general. So those are our big things. We're working on a lot, and I think I covered all my bases. Else? But they all do fit on. What do you got?
Okay. I just want to know, 2 weeks ago, I had this guy circle my block, he was circling my block. I called the police, I told him about it. They used to come, and the guy used to leave. And he did this for 5 months. Keeping my blind free, this one, things. But 2 weeks ago, it was a bug out. He shot the door, and he blew my neighbor's door. So what did we do wrong by calling the police, telling the police, what should have been done? I mean, he was sitting next to the window. His window would have got blown off. But thank God that he talked to me. So now I have to deal with, people coming in. I haven't been there, I just moved there.
I'm sorry.
Actually, is there anyone to speak to it? Are you okay if I talk about it? So this is actually a great example, and I'm glad you brought it up. This is going to show a little bit of how the system works, okay? So that individual was arrested, Yolanda was correct. It was a person with mental illness. They did fire a shotgun at 2 houses, causing damage. The person was apprehended by the police department, and they were transported to Stony Brook CPEP. And the reason why they're brought there, because obviously that's a danger to themselves or somebody else, right? Which is what the police department uses for the involuntary transfer of someone to a mental facility, right? So that's the first step. Then at the mental facility, they would transfer from that location to a long-term facility for additional care. All right. Sometimes they stay at CPEP for a short time, maybe a few days. They're evaluated and maybe given it to medication or put into a program or something to that effect. In this case, they would transfer to a long-term facility, which is good, which is something that we like to see. And that's the way we would hope that the mental health services would work, right? This person obviously was in a crisis and had something going on, and it worked exactly the way it was supposed to. We would take it to the mental health facility, and then from there, take it to a long-term facility. So it's a good example of how it should work, and it doesn't always work that way, right? So in this case, it did, but I think it's a good example to show exactly what the steps are and how it goes.
So that's a positive outcome, right? So, but Yolanda, I think no, all right, no, this isn't a question, this is to add to what you said. Now, Yolanda had been reporting this for some time. And this person still had a mental health issue at the time. So how can that be, preempted or so that somebody possibly getting killed with a shotgun blown to his head doesn't happen? God forbid it did, then it would even be like, holy cow, now somebody starts asking, well, how did they tell me all the time at work when something goes wrong, how did you let that happen? So how do we like get ahead of these things so that what happened, to the officer who got stabbed a couple of months ago, I think it was Bayshore or Patchogue, that doesn't happen. Or what we were talking about earlier, the gentleman in Elwood or Northport that, unfortunately had to be taken down in his basement by two officers when two officers feel threatened. How do we get ahead of that so that we have better outcomes?
It's a great question.
Somebody should came and, following in with the license plate. I mean, you guys have worked 24 hours and, you guys work. Because somebody's constantly, harassing the neighborhood, the guys.
If you don't know what happened and what didn't. So that's it's very, I don't, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't a possibility of that happening. And there's a lot of individuals that are in this. That is what we're looking at. Something that you also have to remember, and everybody needs to remember, is that person, you don't know what criteria they could have fit or not fit, and no matter what, they have to consent to wanting to get treatment.
Even though it's circling around.
I'm not going to speak to your exact incident because I don't know about it, but in general, what the police department does and what they are looking for, what they're looking to evaluate, they felt at that time that that person may have not fit a criteria to come.
Right, you gotta remember, right, the initial criteria for a responding police officer is, are they a danger to themselves or others? So with the criteria, we know what the end was. It's easy to look back when after an incident happens, it's like, we should have did A, B, and C. But if you're a responding officer and the call states, we have a car that drives past the house, right? That's not a threat to you or others. Now, there's always other factors, but just in general. So what we like about the behavioral health now, is let's say I'm able to stop that car and have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Now I have options, right? In the old days, we didn't have options. It was either you were a danger to yourself or others and I take you away, or you're not a danger to yourself and others and I send you off. So I think what this unit is doing is it's giving us other options, right? We have other options that we can now use. Correct. But I don't know every single call that happened, and I don't know if the guy had conversations. You remember too, if the officer stops and the guy says, Officer Anson, you're handsome, but I don't want to talk to you, and he drives off.
They have,
Right?
they have rights.
They still have rights.
Remember, we don't know everybody that has a person with mental illness. Time you evaluate, you do the best you can, but if there's no apparent illness or no apparent danger at the time, you can't just pluck a guy out of the street.
Well, now, because.
I don't blame you. You guys are very unfortunate. I'm very familiar with both incidents.
Yeah, I'm worried that he might come out of the psychiatric ward and be looking at me.
So he still was arrested. So he has to deal with his arrest as well. So, not just gonna come out of the
He
state.
doesn't know.
He doesn't know it was a random house.
Yeah.
But still.
It's still scary, and it still shines a light on the mental health crisis that we have, right? I mean, it's a perfect example. And I'm glad that you were here and you didn't mind sharing it. It's a good story to share with everyone. I appreciate it.
It's a lot. But I could have came with a wheelchair. I understand.
And they caught this guy. He caught that
Fast, they want to
quick,
quit.
right away.
Fast.
Yeah.
Wanna quit.
Little Timmy, little Timmy.
General, well, the good thing that you guys do is, awesome. What about the crimes that committed? And then call, like, somebody shooting, or something, and, but he's distressed, or how did, that's, it's going to come to you, also the police, right?
Yeah.
911, and
Yeah.
did you make reference to that?
Yeah.
Because the crime screen's gotta be addressed.
And they still answer to the charge, they still have to answer to the criminal charge they committed, but that's, once you make your arrest, then they look at you. And, you know, what is that process, so, you know, we can only do what we can do, and we can take them into custody, we can take them to the hospital, we can take them to jail, to see a judge, and after that, you know, there's many of us in this that we, this revolving door, I understand, we still have to find the person.
I don't have to help, but they still have to answer for the crime. Now, and nowadays, a lot of people get bailed. So if they get out, that's, you know, it's a criminality issue. It's a court issue. Once they get arrested, we have to treat them. Right? They have to get treated for the time, whatever medication they get, then they have to answer for their charge.
And depending on the level of diagnosis of what the individual may have, even have in Suffolk County, you have mental health court, drug court, all like different levels of court. So if the court deems that this is a person that mentally is in a state of mental culpability, would better be suited to be into a mental health court, they may go that route, which then would require that that person get appropriate mental health. But that's, no matter what, they're being held accountable and they're going through court system.
There's a woman, one of the, holding on one almost daily. Get out of bed. I'm hungry. This is time to resource that you guys need.
But that's what we do. That's what the police department is. We do it all, and that's.
Only comes, please, only comes.
So when I go to headquarters and I do person, a lot of the poll takers will give me like people that poll them time. And then I can refer them to Dash Family Services. So it helps us to communicate. Just, listen, this one polls all the time because she fell or because she doesn't get into the bed. And then I would write an email to Family Service League and say, hey, can we maybe get an aid or send her up with resources that are better suited for her? It might not even be mental. Might just be her physical condition. She needs that assistance, but they can at least set it up to help her out and give resources that we can go.
Person can brought to our attention, whether maybe adult protective services needs to be involved, a family member needs to be involved. We are,
That's a few.
the mental health, the whole operation of it is at its past.
Go to a store
Yeah.
and you bump into somebody that's, you know, there.
So, maybe this is getting into like a little bit. I think Tim's point is almost like walking through where a unit of only 4 people. But the co-response community, you have administrative duties. Plus you're receiving calls, sometimes it's called diversion, maybe. How do you guys even navigate working the entire county on a day-to-day basis? Like a lot is placed on you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Great, right, boss?
We're taking small steps at, and I'd like to really look to expand. Keeping that on that, how beneficial that is on numerous reasons. One, for our job, you know, if we can go out, we alleviate the burden of patrol having to go to the squad. And also, and like what you were saying, it's been proven that, you know, when we show up like this and we've gone out, when we're like this, you know, the people that we're addressing, they're in a calmer state. They're not, we understand sometimes the uniform can bring a feeling of anxiety or, you know, so when we show up like this, we have unnecessary equipment, we're in a more relaxed state, and we're finding that's beneficial. So, you know, we're starting to put data together, we're starting to put, where we could show that, you know, something like this is beneficial and use that to expand our unit and offices into this, to get more training and to go out. And again, if you know, he was asking the gentleman back there, was asking before about what's the goal. You know, on a police department side, the goal is to diminish police response for people who are in crisis, and we talk about crisis and all that, to get them the necessary help. You know, we are not social workers, so that's what we're trying to do as well for the police department. Diminish us having to go to your house, which leaves the officers on patrol available to handle those emergency 911 calls and put in service, you know, handle those. So that's the goal. We're, you know, again, we're taking baby steps in a lot of these little areas, but you know, you gotta start somewhere.
And we each have different projects that we work on. We all know about what each other's doing, but we each kind of take one thing and run with it and make that out. So it's not like not all working on everything all the time together, which I think is a efficient way of getting a project like this done, because we're creating it. We are deciding amongst us what we want this to look like and how this is going to go. We've been given that this opportunity and the leeway to decide based upon the relationships that we have established with these other organizations. What do we want this collaboration to look like? How do we best support patrol and our police department and make sure our brethren get home safe at night? And also the members of the community, make sure that they are getting the best help that they could possibly get. And that is one of my biggest goals and solutions before I retire, is to hold accountable to the other end of this, the mental health component of this. So I can attest to the fact that we are doing exactly what we're supposed to do. So.
So you guys walking through?
No, it's not.
It's not. Somebody called you. Somebody like, oh.
Phone calls and emails would come in and we're responding.
You know, as supervisors on the scene, we'll call them. But we have a personal number of barricading something that happens. I'll call. They know if you're. I'll let them know. They'll come to the scene. Call them and they'll do a workup on who. I've had them 10 persons to how you utilize it. And we can get information on what kind of person we're dealing with. Barricading and stuff. So that's an example. But they are on call during certain hours of the day.
Got a lot of hands. I'm sorry. When I did see your hand go up first.
So what is percentage of the mental health? At a high level, percentage right now? Like that before COVID?
So I'm a police officer. I don't have any other backgrounds other than my experience in this. Even if I did, because I'm a Suffolk County police officer, I would not speak. So there's a lot of reasons that the state is in the mental health crisis that it is in. Factually, you can look back to when we became deinstitutionalized and that a magic medicine was created that was supposed to be a shot that was given to individuals so they can live and thrive in the community. And then everybody just kind of turned their backs. And that was the beginning of the demise, actually, of the crisis that we are now in, for the unhoused and the mental health problem. As far as anything recent going on, I can't speak.
What's the cause of these children
like I said, I would only be giving a personal opinion and I would rather not do that in my role. So I, like that, even if I was,
No, I understand that, because it's so sad to hear you say that, and, my heart breaks for this. You see, you've got children. That's really heartbreaking.
and I'm sure the principal will do that and what he deals with, and I know some of his students, and I will agree with you. That's the.
I mean, at what time? I really heard it now.
It was hidden a lot in the past. Well, nobody talked about it.
That was the comment I was gonna make, you know, and you said, almost too little, too late, but you're. I have to do it. To my it's not illegal, and it's really hard for us to, I think, conceptualize this. It's not illegal to be mentally ill. It's not illegal to act abnormally. It's just so publicized now, and so out there, because the issue is so real, and it's everything. I would say half to 3/4 of the discipline issues that I are directly tied to some sort of issue, some sort of socioeconomic, parental unit issue, family issue, which spikes these issues to come out. And then you see, drug use as tiny steps in that direction, which can, it's a simple marijuana can cause a break and then break, and then that exacerbates the situation as well. So it's really just and it's a great point that it was so shunned for so long, and people were so embarrassed because it's invisible, right? There's no cast or saying, oh, that person has a broken arm. You can't look at them and say they're dealing with mental illness. She's actually cool. That's what we're becoming aware of. And that's forward. And I just like that racist and corruption. They have a data program just that.
No, it made it worse.
It brought awareness, which can go.
Their term should work.
Yeah.
We do different programs now, and like the spotlight on fentanyl that we do with the EMT officers, who will talk those presentations directly on how dangerous fentanyl is and marijuana, is criminalized, a lot of it that's being, but still it's going to be laced, and so it's not a full-fledged DARE program. It's definitely different. We're not passing around a suitcase full of pills labeled for everybody to see. So there's a version of it that we still, it was.
So do they teach in the schools? I went to school, I had help. They told about all this. I was scared. They still have, they talk about this, and absolutely, just like everything else. Kids, when they that 2 + 2 is 4, they might not remember. The same thing happens with everything else, like deodorant, like that's part of health, and it just can't. The same thing happens sometimes with drugs, and the DARE program did, educate kids sometimes in the wrong way, like of what they have access to instead of should be scared. So I think the new tactics. One more essay. Being that New York State legalized marijuana, decriminalized, so you can. Sorry?
Not a criminal offense to be possession of the same.
So my question is, I think, of the situation, because I live in a complex and you walk past it, even I smell it inside my condo, kind of lives next door all over. And I think 70 of these children that were with their spoken, that be the message. So
So once you start smoking pot, you see it there, you're gonna smoke. Me, when I was growing up and all this, it says when you smoke pot, next thing is something else, and then. Thank you.
So two-part question. So, I heard a couple of times, you guys say that, you're not social workers, understandable, and we're psychologists. So is it in the planning 5-10 years out that those roles will become part of SCPD to more, put more tools in your toolbox? Like, I don't quite understand like what a social worker could do that you guys could maybe make an assessment. Certainly a trained psychologist also. Is that something that is being looked at to have social workers and psychologists become part of Suffolk County Police Department? And the other question was, right now you're 5, right? And there's 7 precincts, so there's not even one officer per precinct, which is, you guys are stretched. So thank you for what you do. Are you looking to double, your unit, and what would that take? I'm just curious as to like what kind of budget it would take for you guys to get 5 to 10.
So,
10. How much? Hey, it's not a lot of money, though. John. Yeah, look at John.
So the first, I'll jump in. So the first one is no. And we're not gonna hire psychologists. They pretty much do that now. They respond to the scene with psychologists and the liaisons between that and the police department. We're not gonna actually hire them, but we'll work together with them as groups. And to increase the unit, we'd love to increase the unit. Manpower is an issue right now. We're supposed to, Suffolk County Police Department is gonna hire 225 cops this year. That's gonna help. Whether they expand the behavioral health section, we'll see how it goes. But the idea is definitely to expand that in the future.
I also add, Inspector, one of the most critical part of this process is that we have a legislative body that pretty much and manages the budget, county budget. Questions that you guys are asking with regards to manpower is a budgetary question. We are 2.5 years old for this initiative. And we are developing data sets to help support the need to increase this section. However, the budgetary consideration at the legislature.
If you said they're gonna hire 225 police officers, they took 20 of them and gave them to that unit, down that's 20 less police officers. So really, you would need to hire like 250 to offset that.
There's
So
a
like,
lot of other units and there's a lot of other efficiency stuff that we have to manage.
that's kind of what I'm getting at.
There's many, many,
Where you gotta,
Yeah.
far from big from Peter, whatever that
It'll take time.
take it from somewhere.
Service. It's a life process.
You have to take into consideration as well is also, this is a collaborative effort. You're working with Family Service League, who only has a limited amount of resources. So it doesn't, that we can't just all of a sudden start shipping over 5,000 people to them if they can't handle the 5,000 people. You want quality work to be happening as opposed to just shoving a quantity of individuals down anybody's, because the mental health side of this, like I said, that we're holding accountable, needs to catch up to the crisis that the state is in.
So we're gonna conclude it because you guys gotta get back to work. But we're gonna stay a little bit. I'm gonna stay a little bit if you have other questions you'd like to speak to. I want to thank you guys for coming. Anything from the flag?
Date for our next community meeting is after the 7 p.m. police department meeting. So that will be on May 2nd.
I thought May was at 10.
Yeah, it's on our Facebook page, if anybody's interested. You could go to Facebook and see 7th precinct. May 7th. Oh, May 7th, okay, so it'll be, right after that. If anybody would like to attend, it's a general board session. We hold it right after the community meeting for the particular purposes, that in case anybody doesn't want to bring anything up in front of the police department representatives, you can do that in private to us afterward. If you want your thoughts, questions, concerns, problems handled anonymously, we will happily bring them to the inspector or one of the officers that we deal with all the time. And we can try to attack it that way. Chances are good, being that our board is so diverse in areas that we cover personally in our personal, where we live, that we run. If you're having an issue, we probably know somebody having the same or similar issue. So public is always welcome to those meetings. It's a lot of administrative stuff that we handle, but it's generally also a planning session.
Become. But it pays off. They pay. You have the best things, the best people. Hey, it's okay. We like that. Themselves and we can't pay them.
Yeah, good. Well, that's why people move out, right? Schools and safety. Is that right? Fortunately, that thing happened to you guys.
Yeah, and I was telling you, we're not telling you, I died in the
Generally,
I saw the video.
email, was it Facebook? Facebook?
The precinct level.
We want to kind of just introduce ourselves so that they know what areas we're from.
Usually, it's not, sometimes we get that, but it's like.
Yes.
So if you see,
Ladies and gentlemen, if you wouldn't mind, please just make sure that you sign us.
As far as